Hey, what's up guys? It's Thorrior the Warrior, and today's video is going to be a dueling guide against Shadow Priests for warriors. And the first thing we're going to go over here are the warrior strengths and weaknesses against a Shadow Priest. So, specifically against a Shadow Priest, Reflect is pretty useful because you can reflect VT and it really sets them behind. Warriors have lots of burst, and that's pretty good against anybody. It's very effective against Shadow Priests. They're cloth wearers, and it's not too much of a big deal that Colossus Smash was nerfed against cloth wearers, so it's really good that warriors have a lot of burst against Shadow Priests. Warriors have more efficient self-healing than Shadow Priests. Shadow Priests have to drop out of Shadow form to do any real major healing. All they really have is Vampiric Embrace, so the warriors have better healing in a dueling situation. Now for the weaknesses, warriors cannot reliably mitigate spell damage at all, really. There's Spell Reflect, but that's once every 25 seconds, so it's not really reliable or really good to mitigate. It's better for offense, really. And throughout the span of a duel, warriors are pretty much forced to eat a fear unless you get lucky and predict it in Bladestorm, the fear, but a lot of that's kind of RNG and just guessing. Alright, now on to Shadow Priests. Shadow Priests' biggest strength against warriors is that all of their damage is spell damage, and warriors don't really have a reliable way to mitigate that, so it's gonna hit them for lots of damage. Shadow Priests have really good mitigation. They've got 15% in Shadow Form, shields, and dispersion is 90% reduced damage, so they can really stop a lot of your damage, especially your recklessness. And something that sort of goes overlooked in duels is the ability to mind control. When they get you in your second fear, there's nothing you can do about it, and you have to eat a mind control. Now, the weaknesses of a Shadow Priest is they're forced to cast a lot. Most of their burst and damage dealing abilities are casted, so warriors can do a lot to stop that. And Shadow Priests have to drop Shadow Form to cast their heals, and while those heals are strong, they're consuming a lot of mana and really reducing a lot of their offensive pressure to do so. The strategy for beating a Shadow Priest in a duel is pretty straightforward. Just try to do a lot of damage to them and make sure that you're out-damaging their DPS. But a few key things to actually keep in mind, and a few tips against a Shadow Priest that makes them completely weaken, if you can pull it off, are these few things here. If you can pull off a fear on their Shadow Fiend, you're drastically reducing their damage, which in a duel is huge. It's really hard to do though, because they can Fear Ward their Fiend, and if you're caught on a GCD, there's nothing you can do about it. And warriors can't really just sit there not using GCDs, so. Another thing you can do is if they juke your pummel, go ahead and reflect their cast onto you. You'll reduce their damage and increase your own. That's really good to do. Make sure that you trinket Psychic Horror, the disarm, and do not forget to heal after you berserk the fear, because you're only going to get one berserking in this duel. And as always, like I say in my previous dueling guides, make sure that you rallying cry in an emergency if you're low health near the end of the duel. Make sure you pop that. Alright, so we're going to take you into the first duel here. And, this guy jumps my charges in the beginning of the duel, so I'm sort of at a little bit of a disadvantage with that, but so he jumps my charge, Psychic Horrors me, I trinket, and I fake a Spell Reflect, and I get back onto him, and he pops his Fiend, and unfortunately I'm GCD locked, so I don't quite stop it in time. Now, pausing it here, this is my biggest mistake in the whole duel, and I would have been fine otherwise had I paid attention. I only have 1 second left on my Berserker Rage, and I didn't burn my heal. So, at this point, I am pretty much in a lot of trouble. And even though I force an early dispersion here, it doesn't really matter because I'm already at half health, and I'm just taking tons and tons of damage. I pop my wreck, and while I do burn a lot of damage into him, I'm taking increased damage because of it, and I'm not able to keep up, and he finishes me off. Okay, so taking into the second duel here, he mounts up again, and I'm actually able to get a decent charge off here, so he's snared off of his mount, and I just pump damage into him, and I miss the GCD again on his Fiend. It's really hard to do, guys. I throw him down, and he trinkets and disperses, and at this point I have a really big lead because I actually remembered to burn my heal this time. So I charge back onto him, and I'm just doing tons of damage right now. I lock him out with a pummel right here, and I burn Wreck at this point, and he drops out of shadow form and tries to heal through it, but my recklessness does so much damage that he's unable to really gain any ground, and I finish him off. Alright, so moving into the third duel here, it's a pretty standard opener. I charge him, and he actually isn't able to jump charge it. I Berserker Rage his fear, throw him down, and he trinkets immediately and pops his Shadow Fiend. Catches me on GCD again. So, right now his trinket's down. I burn my trinket on Psychic Horror, and he tries to juke me, so I just don't even bother pummeling because I expect him to. And I take the opportunity to actually pop Recklessness and Blade Storm with Sweeping Strikes, and his Shadow Fiend just drops immediately. And that affects his damage considerably. He made a huge mistake not dispersing the Rec Storm because he probably didn't expect it, but he gets a second fear on me, and I Zerk Rage out and leap charge him, and he's so far behind at this point that there's just no chance of him catching up, and just burn Deadly Calm and finish him off. Alright, so taking into the fifth duel here, it's a standard start. He gets a really good jump charge, so I actually have to leap over to him to catch up to him, and we're going to slow it down here. He burns a Psychic Horror, which I trinket, and because of the fact that he burns Psychic Horror and Shadow Fiend, and because I'm not on him, I'm not GCD locked, so I actually catch his Fiend, and we're going to freeze it here. This Shadow Fiend fear reduces so much of his damage and front load pressure. The fact that that Fiend is feared for 8 seconds means that it won't even really get a chance to get back to me, so we resume the duel here, and he fears me, which I Zerk Rage, and I pummel his VT, and he drops Shadow Form to heal. And I just throw him down, and he trinkets, and I have a huge advantage because the Shadow Fiend is feared. So I burn my Wreck here and Blade Storm, but he disperses the entire storm. But because Recklessness is 12 seconds long, I'm still going to get a few really good shots in on him. And right here, I just crush him. He's not able to catch up. So the Fiend just makes all the difference. Alright, for the fifth duel, I play pretty aggressive. We start the duel off standard here. He mounts up, and I charge onto him, and he actually does not get a jump charge off this time, so that's great for me. He burns a fear, and I Zerk out, and he pops his Fiend and gets me on GCD lock, and I burn my heal to make sure that I cover my fear break. And he Psychic Horrors, and I trinket out, and it's pretty even at this point, but I pop my Wreck and destroy his Fiend. Now he does dispersion some of that Recklessness Blade Storm, but I still have some of the Wreck left over, so I get a couple really good shots into him, but this is where things kind of get interesting. He lands a second fear on me, and I have no way to stop it, so he gets a mind control off on me. So I can't control my character, and I'm forced to take damage, but because I had such a good lead already, and I still have Rallying Cry, which I just popped, I have the advantage at this point, and he's trying to frantically kill me with Shadow Word Death and everything, and he makes a last-ditch effort to heal himself, but he's not able to do it in time. So this is the final duel of the dueling tutorial, and it's a really, really close one, and it's pretty exciting, so I figured I'd put it at the end. He gets an extremely good jump charge off here, so I'm actually forced to use Heroic Leap, which will cost me later in the duel. He pops Shadow Fiend and catches me on GCD lock, and I Zerk his Fear, and I trinket Psychic Horror and burn my heal to keep up. And at this point, I burn my Recklessness and Blade Storm. So I'm actually able to do tons of damage to both him and his pet because he decided to save his dispersion. And he's able to withstand that later half of the wreck, so at this point he catches me in a fear, and right before he dies, so I'm forced to eat that fear, and I'm going to freeze it right here. I make a big mistake, guys, and I pop Rallying Cry way too early. You do not need to pop Rallying Cry this early. Try to push it further, Warriors, whenever you're in a duel. So I popped it, and I don't have a distance closer because my charge is down and my heroic leap is also down from earlier, so I have to walk for about 5 seconds before it being able to charge. I catch up to him, and at this point my rallying cry falls off and I nearly lose the duel. Alright guys, this has been Thorrior the Warrior, and hope you liked the video, and there'll be plenty more in the future, and I'll see you guys next time.